I'll hand it off to Jeff, who can start off the today's session, and then I think Anvita has an exciting demo as well to show. So I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Chetak. Good morning, everyone, from a very chilly Pacific Northwest. It's great to be back. This is session 2 of our series on Automation Cloud. I'm Jeff Anderson. I run core platform marketing here at UiPath and also specifically Automation Cloud marketing. With me this morning, the person you'll be hearing most from, Anvita, product manager who runs our Automation Cloud Robots team. So we'll get our pictures off the screen and get straight to the agenda. So the agenda for today, Automation Cloud Robots 101, Cloud Robots SaaS Offering, Cloud Robots, and what's coming next, and Q&A. But before we actually get into the Cloud Robots, we just wanted to be super clear because we get this question all the time. What types of robots can you run from Automation Cloud? Can my Automation Cloud run my on-premises robots? Can it run robots in third-party cloud? Do you have SaaS robots? These are all questions that we get all the time, and here are the short answers. You can do all of those things from Automation Cloud. So the first type of robot that you can run is the one we're going to spend almost all of this session talking about, Automation Cloud Robots. So these are SaaS robots provisioned and managed by UiPath in the UiPath Automation Cloud, really fast. We'll come to the value prop of these, but just to be clear, that's the all SaaS option. You can also put robots in your public cloud with or without what we call elastic robot orchestration. So if you put robots in your AWS, Azure, or GCP cloud, then Automation Cloud can not only manage and run those robots, it can also spin them up and spin them down with elastic robot orchestration as needed. Third thing you can do is public cloud without elastic robot orchestration. So if you're just installing robots in a public cloud and you want to manage them manually, you can do that from the Automation Cloud Orchestrator. And finally, yes, you can have your robots on premises or in the private cloud. And essentially, then you're managing all of that supporting infrastructure. And the key point here about all of these is all of the non-automation cloud scenarios is that from a security point of view, the robots are always reaching out to Automation Cloud from within your network or your third-party network and asking for instructions. So they're always opening the connection. Automation Cloud is never trying to reach into your network to get those robots to do anything. It's always a query that comes from within your network outwards. So that's some sort of broad context, which means that effectively with the UiPath platform, you can do whatever you need to optimize for your TCO and policy objectives. And you essentially have a range between more control and more convenience. So if we think about robots and orchestration, one way you can do it is you can install everything on-prem. You can install Automation Suite, you can install robots, and you can manage and orchestrate those robots yourself. And that gives you every scenario you might want right the way up to air-gapped from the internet to be able to run your infrastructure. Or you can somewhat mix and match, particularly when it comes to robots and how you orchestrate them. So you can have orchestration delivered as a service from Automation Cloud. You can install and manage them, and you can install and manage the robots yourself. You can have orchestration from Automation Cloud, and we can scale up and down the robots. Or finally, you can do the scenario we're primarily talking about today, which is, we call it the most convenient. It's also the fastest, which is all of your orchestration and other services in Automation Cloud and your robots in Automation Cloud as well. I see a question in the chat. As soon as Anvita takes over, I will start answering the chat questions just to let you know how that's going to go. So you see in this diagram, you have essentially complete control over where you want to manage from, on-prem or in the cloud, and the types of robots that you want to manage. But we do often get asked that question, if I move to Automation Cloud, at least in the short term, could I keep using my on-prem robots? And the answer is absolutely yes. You may, in the longer term, want to start thinking about, should I go to SaaS robots as well? And so moving to automation cloud robots specifically, that's essentially the last you'll hear of on-prem robots today. The moving to automation cloud specifically, what are the key benefits? The first is there's very low infra setup. In fact, from your point of view, there's no infrastructure set up in the IT sense. There's just a little bit of configuration, and that means a faster time to value. It means, we say lower time to value. Faster time to value really means you can get up and running really, really fast. The second is that they are cloud first, so they're infinitely scalable. The third is that they have low operating costs, because the net impact of all that low infra setup, the fact that you never have to actually upgrade them yourself or do any of that work, reduces a bunch of the operational costs associated with them. And finally, they are designed to be enterprise ready. I don't want to steal the thunder from Anvita, but there's a bunch of features that you'll see this morning that have been designed very specifically to make sure that that automation cloud robots are designed truly for enterprise scale, for enterprise management, and to be able to work with your security and compliance scenarios, which gives me a fantastic segue into Anvita. Good morning, Anvita. Welcome, and take it away.
Thank you so much, Jeff. I can go ahead and share my screen in the interest of easier coordination. Move the slides. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you, and thank you, Jeff, for handing it over. I will continue the thread from where Jeff left, and also in the interest of time, I'd love to spend a lot more time on some hands-on demos. So we'll go through a few slides on some specific features about what cloud robots have to offer, what their licensing would look like, and then sooner jump into a demo to actually prove the points we're trying to make here on how scalable and instant provisioning do cloud robots actually offer. So this is a little bit of a deep dive in some specific feature sets that cloud robots offer. It's a bit of a texty slide. So the highlights I want for you to take away is the point that Jeff left us with about being enterprise ready. We are, as cloud robots product family, tested with SOC 2 Type 2 and HIPAA Type 2 attestation. So we are absolutely enterprise grade ready. In terms of the feature sets we offer, a couple of them to highlight are that we actually have auto updates enabled for the UiPath products or services that are added onto the virtual machine that run as unattended robots. These are our robots primarily, and the assistant that get auto updated within every 2 weeks of a new robot version launch. So you basically take away the hassle of needing to do version controls and know when the new robot versions are out to actually need to do the updates on your own. So that's a big one that we manage from our end, on top of all that Jeff shared already. The other thing we give you is complete visibility and control for all kinds of monitoring that you need in terms of alerts and logs, which gives you complete access and visibility in where machines are going wrong, if there is any trouble in execution, or how are the logs panning out to be. And I'll show it you in the demo on how seamless and comfortable that flow is. As Jeff pointed out, these don't require any IT resources. You essentially just set up the provisioning on how you want the virtual machine to be set up in terms of the size of the machine you want to select, the image on which the machine should be spun up, a little bit more about the configuration, and that's broadly it. The IT resources may come into picture a little bit if you need to contact your network administrators to make use of the VPN connection that we've launched as well. I'll talk through about it in the last bullet of this slide. And before I talk about it, the 2 or 3 other things that I wanted to highlight was we've provisioned something called automatic machine pools, where we also take away the hassle of going ahead and provisioning machines as the pools are set up. So what you do in the get-go is just give configurations of how you want the machines to be spun up in terms of what size of the machine, what image it needs to be spun up on. If there is a specific IP address, it should refer to every time it spins up. All of those specifications you give us in the get-go, and you're kind of done from there. You don't need to go in and provision your machines on your own. You essentially just start running your workflow, your automation, and we spin up the machine as we see there are jobs waiting in the pipeline to be run. We also offer these virtual machine ACRs, Automation Cloud Robots, in different sizes. So depending on your workflow, depending on the policies you have, you are absolutely free to go ahead and use them in different sizes. We also provide custom image support. So you have the freedom to actually configure your virtual machines so that they're able to run your automations seamlessly. You can actually go in and add the required applications, get them set up such that you then are able to run your automations on top of it. And once created for one time, you can snapshot that custom image such that you can continue spinning up machines on top of it without the hassle of making each virtual machine ready with the required applications. So it's a one-time effort that you get one machine ready, snapshot the custom image, and make sure that the next set of machines get spun up on that custom image. So it's just that one-time effort that you may need, and that's absolutely provided by us. And the last one, which was a big ask that we delivered a few months back, is our site-to-site VPN connection that gives you access on your on-network firewall protected application. It's, again, a fairly straightforward process. I'll show it to you in our demo later today, but it gives you complete access to actually create a VPN tunnel, connect your robots to them and to the tunnel, and essentially access any applications that need to be accessed to run your automation, which are on your on-premise network and are protected by firewall. So these are a few key highlights of what Cloud Robots have to offer. And in a nutshell, the takeaway is that we're increasingly seeing less and less reasons for why Cloud Robots with UiPath should not be the default choice for running your automation, given how light and scalable they are, with complete parity, if not additional features that we offer to the current setup that you're already aware of. Having said that, Cloud Robots come in the two flavors. This slide, what we spoke about, was particularly for Cloud Robots virtual machines, as we call them ACR VMs. And the second flavor we have, which are further lightweight, completely SaaS-based, consumption-based price automation robots, which are serverless automation cloud robots, which essentially are designed to run cross-platform automations. Think of browser automations, API-based automations that are created in any of our studio environments. You can also run some instant test environments from within Studio Web on serverless robots. The key thing here, on top of the additional the pieces we laid out in Automation Cloud Robots VM, is that these robots get charged particularly by execution time. And we'll introduce that and talk a little bit more about the concept of robot units a little later. But these essentially are charged on consumption-based from day one. And hence, they're extremely lightweight. You can also run up to 50 jobs concurrently. So you can run heavy workflows, which are high volume, with serverless on the go. They also provide a site-to-site VPN connection that you can connect back to your network. So these are the two key flavors of cloud robots that we offer with ACR, which is virtual machines and serverless. And like we said, they come in different versions, in different sizes, and in different environments. So as you'll see here, we shared with you that we have ACR VMs, the Automation Cloud Robot virtual machines, as the first flavor of robots. You see them come in both environments, production as well as test or non-production. We offer 4 different sizes for each of them, ranging from small to large, depending on their storage capacity and CPU. And they're priced differently as well, given they're meant to be used for different environments. And the same is applicable for our second flavor of robots, which is serverless cloud robots as well. They come in production and test environments and are offered in 4 different sizes, right from small to large. So as you can see, there is an increasing set of optionalities and flexibility, depending on your workflows, your automations, to actually provision any of these 16 options between production environment, test environment, and virtual machine and serverless cloud robots. We will run a few demos, and we'll talk about use cases then particularly, and we'll show things in action. But to give a lay of the land, between cloud robots, virtual machines, and serverless, what we have seen is across different sizes of businesses, between small, medium, and large, essentially cloud robots are at parity and fit the job for any kind of workflow automation, be it the most common ones from the back office operations of finance, HR, or IT, which truly have very little or no infra dependency. And you can run essentially any and all kinds of jobs could be in finance around reconciliation at the quarter ends, for storing data, for flagging errors, could be on HR side to create automatic case creations, case augmentations for any of the service desk tools, or even think of any end-to-end automations that IT and IT back office kind of thinks about. So net, basically any automation that you have or want to run and have an option of a self-hosted robot, Cloud Robots should do the job equally well with all the flexibility and optionality that you get on top of it. The serverless, we told you that it's mainly about browser-based automations and API-based automation. So think of any automations that are primarily lightweight, that are run cross-platform, and are primarily on the web or API. Serverless robots are those lightweight robots that you can absolutely get going on the go. And like we said, they process high volumes, so you can run as many as up to 50 jobs concurrently at any given time, which gives you the option to run high volume jobs with serverless. A little bit more flavor for running a classic serverless job. Think of a purchasing process automation where the entire end-to-end process needs to generate a purchase order right from the time there is data in the procurement system up until sending the purchase order for signature, receiving it from the customer, and storing that signed purchase order in the relevant ERP systems, and ensuring that all the POs finally are saved in a particular storage platform. From each of these steps, as it's laid out here, 1 through 6, you can essentially have serverless cloud robots do each of these jobs in parallel, and they're all either browser-based or API-based. So you're basically good to go to run the entire process through serverless cloud robots in a few minutes or seconds. So these are a few classic examples of how serverless cloud robots come handy when you want to run some core enterprise processes in the backend operations of procurement or IT or finance, but are primarily based for web-based and API automations. With that, we'd love to talk a little bit more about now, once you think you know you want cloud robots, how do you go ahead and procure them? So like Jeff had mentioned earlier, this is a pure SaaS offering. And the way we license cloud robots today is through robot unit bundle. Robot units is essentially this currency of use that we launched, which can be consumed by both our key versions of Cloud Robots, which is Cloud Robots Virtual Machines and Cloud Robots Serverless. How it's licensed out today is one robot unit bundle that you buy at an MRP of $14,400 for 1 full year, gets you 72,000 robot units for that entire 12-month contract duration. That instantly translates to 6,000 units to be used each month for each robot unit bundle that you buy. These now 6,000 robot units that you get each month can be consumed by provisioning machines in different sizes. So for virtual machines as well as serverless, you have different sizes. And you can also use them for different environments, production or test. And once these 6,000 units that are available for you to be used each month expire at the end of the month, we try and auto-allocate the balance 6,000 each month such that your machines continue to keep running on the go. So that's what you get with each robot unit bundle. And that's how you license cloud robots today. You can buy in multiples of robot unit bundles and basically get more robot units. That gets you a lot more options to spin up machines, add more customization options, use different sizes, use different production or test environments. Like we said, we offer these cloud robots in different sizes and different versions. So of course, there will be different rates per se for each of these. And this is how it looks like. So for virtual machines, by the size, which is small to large, and by environment, which is production to test, the rightmost column gives you a sense of how much do we charge in robot units per month. It starts from as low as 5,000 units a month for a small production VM, up until 10,000 units for a large production VM. And as you'll notice, the pricing or the robot unit consumption for test VMs for each of the sizes are marked much lower than production environments, because of course they're meant to be used for test environments only. A similar price chart for serverless robots. And as you'll see, what we'd mentioned earlier, these are essentially consumption-based from the beginning, from the get-go. So they will be charged on per minute of the workflow run, starting with 1 robot unit per minute for a small serverless production machine, up until 10 robot units per minute for a large serverless production machine. And you can see the respective smaller rate units for test environments within serverless as well. And the last two options we also consume robot units for is a few customization options, which are around the availability of the machine once it's spun up. And I'll show a little bit more to you around it when we see the demo. But essentially, the takeaway is that you have on this page itself, say around 18 options that you can use depending on the automations that you have, depending on how you want to run your workflows, and put the robot units to use once you procure the robot unit bundles during licensing.
Hey, and
Maybe
can I just ask one question? I'll just be that guy. The distinction between test robots and non-production robots, is there any difference between them, or can I use test robots for non-production scenarios?
You can use test robots for non-production scenarios. They are meant to be used for any scenarios which are not on production, essentially. So you can absolutely use them for non-production as well.
Cheers.
Thanks for making me highlight that. Let's go on. Given we showed that there's a ton of options for you to put your robot units to use, we figured it's worthwhile giving a bit of an example on how typically these plans are put to use. So for this example, let's see there are, for instance, a customer buys or your user buys 5 robot units, robot unit bundles, which typically are around how many unattended automations you want to run. And that immediately translates to 72,000 robot units into 5 for the total contract duration, given you bought 5 bundles. Once you've done that, as we said, they immediately also translate into 6,000 units per month per bundle. And given we bought 5, what we have now each month is about 30,000 robot units that we can put to use from across the 18 options we saw. This is what the 18 options concise in a smaller table here is. And here's a couple of options on how you can actually put them to use. So with the 30,000 robot units, say you use 25,000 of them to spin up 5 small production VMs that help you run the 5 unattended automations you had. But with the balance 5,000 robot units that you have each month, you can also go ahead and provision, say, 2 small test VMs for 4,000 units and basically use those to run some test cases or non-production cases. You can also use, say, about 500 robot units to run 500 minutes of a serverless job run on a small production machine with serverless robots. You're still left with 500 additional robot units that, say, you can put to use on certain customization options for machine availability that you can do as well. If not that, what you can also do is instead of 5 small production VMs, you can provision 4 standard production VMs, which will have a higher storage and better CPU that consumes 24,000 units for you. And then from the balance 6,000 that you're left with, you can provision a standard test VM, consume 3,000 units there, run a few of your automations that can be supported by serverless and use it for, say, 1,000 minutes on a standard production serverless machine. And for the balance 1,000 that you're left with, you can provision it to have a fast availability of the machine, which means that one of the machines would not go idle, and you spend 1,000 units for that. These are just 2 options, but the takeaway is that there can be a lot many that you have the optionality and flexibility of as you think about provisioning the 30,000 robot units that you have if you bought 5 robot unit bundles and you get these 30,000 units each month. Switching gears, and before we move into our demos and seeing some hands-on experience, we did want to share what's next that we're thinking about. 3 key pillars that we are continuing to focus on. Having an enterprise-grade readiness for our product continues to be one of our top highlights of something we keep working on continuously. So having an automated domain join experience as well as some enhanced base image support for the ACR VM product is something we're working on. We're also working towards enhancing a faster time to value. So we have a bunch of backend improvements and an easier troubleshooting experience that makes it faster to actually continue using cloud robots. And finally, a bunch of pricing improvements to continue upping the flexibility. A lot that's already available, but we continue thinking about features around fractional robot units that maybe you can add on, or guidelines on how flexibility can be adopted for different licenses that are available today. So a bunch of this is already something in the work. We are already putting time and effort on. And with that, we'd love to move to a demo. We have about 15 minutes. That's the time check I keep doing. And that's, I think, reasonable for us to go through a few of our highlights. What we'll see today essentially is we'll do like a quick prep time. So we'll go into our admin section. We'll do allocation of our robot units to the relevant tenant, which is the step one that's needed to get started. We will then run a couple of machine pools. We'll set up a couple of machine pools for serverless and virtual machines, and we'll see that in action. We'll allocate relevant permissions and access management, run a simple job, and I'll talk through a few customization options along the way as well. So with that, before I tune back and talk to you about next week, I'll switch my tabs, and we are in my cloud portal, actually Jeff's cloud portal that he has graciously invited me as an organization member, and transition first to our admin section. Here, there are a couple of things I want to highlight before we go back into Orchestrator and start setting up our machines. The first one is how you allocate robot units to your tenant. So it's very straightforward. All you do is visit your tenant or from the left nav or the left bar, go into the tile called licenses. There's a second tab between users and robots. And once you go to robots and services, you see the bottom right says robot units, which is our currency of use for cloud robots. And it'll give, and the blue bar with the gray bar will give you an indication of how many are actually allocated to this tenant of the total that are available in the organization. You'll also on the bottom have this graph, which talks about the usage of robot units on top of allocation. So you know per tenant, what's the usage like in terms of the consumption of robot units. Once you have this picture, all you do is click on the top right, which is edit allocation. And the first header there itself is robot units. As you'll notice, there are a few bullet points that give an indication of how many are already allocated. So we've already allocated 45,000 units to this tenant. Of the total that we have in the org, we have 49,000 available still for allocation. We've consumed about 20,051 robot units in this tenant. We've also allocated 6,000 in another tenant, and the total we had in the org in the first place was 100,000. So we have an indication of how many we already have and how many we have to allocate as a balance. So all you do is in the text bar that you have, you can essentially add in, edit it, and just on the bottom right, click on save, and that's about it. As you'll see, we get a pop-up saying it's updated successfully. The blue bar shifted to the right, and we already see 55,000 allocated that we just did. So it's that straightforward and that simple. And now we're ready to go into our tenant and start provisioning the machine pool. Before I transition out of our admin section, however, I do want to share how we set up a VPN gateway, because we do have to navigate back to admin for the step one of it. So let's just be more efficient and use it right away. The first thing you need to know about VPN gateway is you need to make sure that you're on the new admin experience. All you do is just toggle right on the top right, just make sure the toggle is turned on, because VPN gateway is available only in the new admin experience. The other two key things to note is we allow one gateway per tenant. So you need to we have that limitation that you need to know about. And the other one that we need is a check that you have at least 5,000 robot units in your tenant allocated. Do note, as you create the gateway, we do not charge robot units for the creation of the gateway, but we make sure that it's already allocated, and it's a check that we put to make sure that you have the required robot units to then go out and spin up a machine in order to connect it to this gateway. So with these three things, all you do is create a gateway, add a name that you want, get the address space for the gateway VNet from your network administrator, and just click on create. And that's about it. You get a pop-up that the gateway is requested for generation and it's provisioning. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour from the cloud providers and to get this going. For purposes of today's demo, we already have one set up for our primary tenant, which is Cloud Robots. So I'll give you a walkthrough of once your gateway is set up, how is it that you go ahead and add your machines on top of it. For you to know more about VPN connections, we have all of the stuff laid out in doc fairly clearly. So we encourage that you keep referring it time to time. With that, we navigate into our orchestrator and see our cloud robots in action. We set up a couple of machine pools and get some machines up and running. All you do is navigate into your tenant from orchestrator and go into the tab of machines. From the dropdown of add machine, you have 5 options, the 3 of which are for cloud robots, which is cloud robot virtual machine, cloud robots serverless, and elastic robot pool. But today we'll kick off with cloud robots virtual machines. There are 3 simple steps. It's fairly straightforward, intuitive. All you do is start with a robot pool name. You can add a description if needed. We can add as needed. And on the right, as you see, you have 2 options of having an automatic pool or a manual pool. In this scenario, when you click an automatic pool, as I described earlier, all you do is configure what the provisioning of the machine should look like in the pool, and you don't need to actually go in and create machines on top of this pool. We will create the machines as we see any jobs that are allocated to this particular machine pool, and we'll start provisioning the machine on the go. For purposes of today's demo, I'll go ahead and do manual because I do want to show you how you actually add a machine and add credentials to it, etc. So in the manual pool, once this machine pool is set up, you do need to navigate in and add the machines and enable them to accept jobs. Once you click on next, there are a few options that you need to select from. As you'll see, the first is the pool environment. We did discuss that you have 2 options with which come in different robot unit consumptions per month for production and test/non-production. If I select production, you'll notice the dropdown has 4 options in terms of the sizes from small to large, and they get charged from 5,000 units a month to 10,000 robot units a month. And as I shift my environment to test and non-production, the dropdown with the sizes of the machine remains same, but you'll see that I have now 4 different, the consumption of robot units goes down from 5,000 to 2,000 for a small machine, up to 9,000 for a large test or non-production machine. For today, why don't we create a small production VM and move to the next tab, which is on machine image. Now, the next thing you want to do now is confirm what kind of image you want for us to spin up the VM on. We have 2 options, standard and custom. The standard one that we offer as a base image comes with our basic UiPath software, which is Robot and Assistant, and the supported browser, which are spun up on a Windows Server 2019 OS. We're very soon launching a support with a base image for Windows Desktop as well. So in that case, if you have a desktop license, you can very well spin up a base image that we provide on a Windows Desktop OS. If not standard, you have the option of adding a custom image. For you to do that, you will need, in the first get-go, create a custom image on top of the VM you spin up and create a snapshot of that. I'll show you how that's done. But as you see, I for now have a custom image added to my folders already. So we'll go ahead and use that to spin up this machine. You have a couple more options on selecting the IP address that you want, the availability of the machines, and you can learn more about all of these optionalities very clearly on our docs page. So feel free to navigate into the docs and specifically read on what each of the options mean and how should you make your selections. Once you do that, all you do is click next, and the last 2 options that you have as steps is you can enable a maintenance window. If you do that, you'll see that you get a bunch of options on when do you want the maintenance to be set up, the recurrence of that, when does it start, for how long does it happen. Do note that all we do during these maintenance windows is make sure that the VM is not picked up if there's a job in the queue, assuming that it's in its own maintenance mode. You need to make sure that you access the virtual machine and update the relevant applications on it during this maintenance window. So you can set it up depending on your requirement. You can also enable the VPN gateway or the VPN integration to connect all machines in this virtual pool, in this VM pool, to the gateway that you've already set up. As you must remember, we've set up this gateway, AD test gateway. I said I'd done that for today's demo in our Cloud Robots tenant. So it gets auto picked up here as default once you turn the toggle on. All you need then is an address space for the VNet for this machine. You need to contact your network administrator to make sure that the IP you get is reserved for this particular machine. And once you have that, you can provision it and click on finish. For now, I'll confirm that we don't want a gateway. I have another machine where the gateway is connected to, so I'll show that to you as well. And all you do is click on finish, and your machine pool is set up. As you can see, we got a pop-up that the machine pool is ready. The immediate next step from there is to access the machine dashboard and add machines on top of it because we've created a manual pool. You can do that by clicking on the 3 dots on the right, click on Add or Manage VMs, and you'll see here there is an Add Virtual Machine option. Before we do that, all you need to kind of confirm is because the pool type is manual, you have an option of adding a virtual machine. Had that been automatic, you would not see this option because we don't need you to add a virtual machine separately for an automatic pool. The other few things you note is the maintenance windows being turned off, the availability of the machine, the pool image that's added, that will make sure all machines are spun up on the custom image, and a few other relevant details around it. For you to add machine, just click on the blue button of Add Machine. You can add the name of the machine as an alias. You can add multiple machines on the go, and use your an admin credential that you want to be accessed for each of these machines. It'll be the same admin credentials that you put up here. As you see, the cost for them moves depending on how many machines you say you want to provision. In this case, because we're thinking about 3 small machines, it's 15,000 robot units for the 3 machines. So you can go ahead and do that, and you'll be all set. I'll cancel this for now because I already have a machine pool where one of my machines is running. So it's this pool. We click the 3 buttons, go to Add or Manage VMs. You'll see here that there are a few options that we need to play around with. This is a manual pool. It says the machine status is stopped. For us, for the machine to run the job, if it's a manual pool, we need to start the virtual machine. All you do, the way you do that is click on the 3 dots and the virtual machine request to start is submitted. It'll just take a couple of minutes and we'll be good to go from there. The 2 other things that you need to take care of is if it's a manual pool, you need to make sure that the accept jobs is enabled. So the way you do that is, again, click on the 3 dots on the right and see an option of accept jobs. It says disable here because it's already enabled. But in case it's not and you need a job to be run, you just click on enable jobs. You can also enable remote desktop if you actually want to RDP into the machine, create custom images. Once you create those, you also have an option of capture image here, as you see, and you're all set. All you do once your machine is ready is come back to this page, create capture image, and the custom image gets captured, and the subsequent virtual machines can potentially be spun up on this particular custom image itself. We'll give it a couple of minutes and see when the machine starts. We'll run a few jobs as that happens, and for that to happen, the one other thing we need to take care of is our access and permissions. So you have to make sure that your machine and yourself as a user is has all the relevant roles and permissions needed. So you navigate to the folders tab within the tenant, go to the folder that you'll run your automation from. For today, we'll run it from the folder shared. And on the right, you'll see users and machines tab. Navigate to the machines tab. And once you click on the manage machines folder, you have the option of adding different machines and clicking on update. Today, we'll run the job on this particular machine that I've already provisioned. So we're kind of good to go. We don't really need to provision this, but why not? Let's go ahead and do it. We have provisioned access to this particular machine that we just created, the machine pool for this entire folder. And the other thing you want to make sure is my user, needs to have a few set of permissions for me to run an unattended job. The most critical one on step 3 is this checkbox, which makes sure that I'm allowed to run unattended automations as the role I have. And if I have certain specific machine that I need to pull it from, like if there are applications on the virtual machine that need to be accessed by a particular user, you can also click on the second radio button here, which uses a specific Windows user account. And you can add the credentials here, the same credentials that you provided for the virtual machine that you spun up, so that we know that we can run the job on this particular machine with these credentials, and the robot knows that how to access that particular machine. With that, we're actually all set. And in the last couple of minutes that we have, we can go ahead and run a couple of jobs and see the robot in action. So I visit my folder. I've added a few processes in already. I'll kick off with a quick demo for serverless. Actually, my apologies. I don't think we got a chance to set up a serverless template. It's actually pretty straightforward, a single step you navigate back into your tenant, go into the Machines tab, and in the dropdown of Add Machine, all you do instead of a Cloud Robot VM is select a Cloud Robot Serverless, and you just need to add a name to your template. Once you do that, you are basically all set. You see all the options that you have in terms of the sizes of the machines between production and testing or non-production setup. And all you do is click on provision and you're basically all set. You don't need to add any machines on top of this pool. All you need to do is make sure that you add this particular machine into the folders with access that we just saw. So you can do that the same way we did for virtual machine, the one we just created. And once we have both our machines set up, we can go to our processes. Let's run a cross-platform job. I've created one here, which is a quick one on identifying the OS of the machine. As you'll see here, the compatibility is cross-platform, so I can absolutely run it with serverless. So I click on run, select the runtime type to be cloud serverless, and essentially just go ahead and click start. The job is pending will be picked up, and as that happens, I'll also in parallel run a small Excel automation that I created, which essentially just sums up 2 columns in an Excel sheet, so fairly straightforward, but giving a sense of how it may run on a cloud robot. So you go to click run the job, you go to runtime type, from the dropdown, select Cloud VM. This time, let's make sure we select the right account, because this machine needs to be accessed to see the Excel file where the file sits and actually do the automation. We can also select which machine we want it to run on. These are not mandatory, but you may need to do that depending on permissions that you've given. And all you do is click start. As you see here, the job's done successfully. You can go in and log and see what happened there. So it was started, it ended, and we know the answer that it was a particular OS. The job run successfully. This job for Excel says it's pending. I'm guessing it's because the machine is starting to run. We just had turned it on. As that happens, this job will be picked up as well. And that's about it. I'm a minute late from how much time I had. So I will go ahead and pause there. If there are questions, we're happy to take them. And I'll just, pause.
That was great. Thank you, Anvita. I think we can give you that extra minute with no particular problems. Okay, so Reid or Chetak, someone is unmuting folks, I think. If anyone wants to ask a question, please go ahead or ask it in the chat. While we're doing that, Anvita, we had 2 or 3 questions just from the chat. I might ask you these ones. Is adding a cloud machine a new option in the last release?
Not last release, actually. Sorry,
Right.
go ahead.
Aha, no, you're right. Sorry, I was going to answer it, but go ahead.
Yeah, so we went live with the product in May of 2022. And that's when you would have seen the additional option added in. But now it's very much out there. So feel free to check it out and play with it. And
a broader point actually is a little known fact about Automation Cloud. We actually release every 2 weeks, basically. We do updates. So while we do those big sort of launch announcements every 6 months, we're continually adding features to lots of parts of Automation Cloud. And that's certainly included Automation Cloud Robots. Those screens in Orchestrator are a whole lot more comprehensive now with new features than they were in May 22. Does anyone have a live question? Otherwise, I'll do another chat one.
Yeah, please unmute yourself and you can ask the question live. Perfect. Yeah, and for some reason, if you don't want to come on mic, and you can always type in your questions and we will take up those. And yes, please feel free to register for the next session, which is happening the Thursday of next week, and that is going into that talks about more into the enterprise grade security capabilities that we offer through Automation Cloud. So I think that is another interesting session. And we also have, I've also posted the link where you can look at all the sessions that are happening as part of the Automation Cloud Best Practices series. And yeah, you can register for other sessions. And if you have missed the earlier session, it is available on demand. You can always view them whenever you have the time.
Hey,
Hey, I
Chetak,
see.
apparently it's
Yeah.
not allowing people to unmute. Is there something we have to do?
Yeah, I just allowed people
Oh,
to unmute. So,
Arpan, you can try once more.
yeah, let me
Try-
try
yeah.
once more. Yeah.
try again. Yeah.
And as you do that, let me still answer the question because you did ask it. The 60-day trial that you said, you can register. So we allow 60-day trials for pro trial licenses. So you can absolutely sign up with a pro trial license and you get 2 months worth of robot units, so 6,000 each month. So a total of 12,000 valid for 60 days. So you can try it out. For community users today, we offer 300 robot units mainly. Because we are keen to have some serverless robot adoption, and we're keen to see some studio web being used to run with some serverless robots. So today, those are the two on top of how you can access robot units if you've not bought a robot unit bundle today.
Okay, thank you. So
Sorry.
I was trying to, I wanted to check it out a little bit before. We work, I work for a financial organization, and we have been interested in UiPath for a while. I just want to be sure of some of the features that you have before we, talk about it internally. So thank you so much. We'll check it out on outside our network a little bit, and yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you. And Vita, how would you know? Here's a good question for you. How would you know how many robot units are needed per job? And what's the easiest way to determine allocation?
Perfect. So because the two flavors that we get our robots in is virtual machine and serverless. For serverless, you get charged by the minutes of the job run. So you instantly know how many ever minutes the jobs were run for. You're charged robot units accordingly. So you know that live. But for a virtual machine cloud robot, the way you do it is you allocate the given needed robot units to set up a virtual machine. Say you set up a small production machine for 5,000 robot units a month. Now you get that machine for all of the full month. So 24/7, all 4 weeks, you have the machine that you can run jobs on for the entire month. So in that scenario, the way you should think about it is you provision the VM for the entire month, and you can run as many jobs, as long jobs as needed for the entire month. And all you'll get consumed, or all you'll kind of pay, is just the 5,000 units for the small production VM.
Perfect. Another one. If the job is faulted or failed in the production environment, what about the costing? Does it resume, or does it take minutes of the job's run? You see
it does. Yeah, that's a good question. At this point, it does take minutes of the job run, as far as I remember, unless Lisa wants to correct me and she's on the call, or Andre. But yeah, you actually do get charged today for jobs. For virtual machines, like I described, that wouldn't matter because you have the machine for yourself for the entire month. The serverless job runs. From what I know, you do get charged for faulted jobs as well. And if it resumes, you get charged again.
Let me just go back to my question bank here. We cleared up during the session. Test Automation Cloud Robots are for essentially all non-production scenarios as well as test suite.
Yeah, thank you for that.
All right. Does anyone else have a question? We're in danger of being able to give you 7 minutes back, which I think is, just an added bonus. But please, we would like to take any questions you have before we wrap up. Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Anvita, for a great demo and lots of information. And if you have any further questions, of course, reach out to partners, your UiPath team, or consult the extensive documentation we're pointing you to here. But we really want to thank you for coming and joining the session. We hope it answered some questions. We are really, really excited about Automation Cloud Robots. It's such a quick way to get up and running. It really means that we now have a SaaS offer that is literally end-to-end, all the way from provisioning the capability right the way through to actually executing everything in the UiPath Cloud. And again, you don't have to do that, but it's a great option because it's super fast and you really get out of the infrastructure business and into the automation business. So with that, thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing many of you at the next session, which is next.
I have a question.
Oh, we'll take another question. Arpan.
Pricing, the pricing of the robot units for an enterprise environment. Is there any documentation on that? And can you please share the link in the chat?
Yes, absolutely. We'll share the link in the follow-up mail, I believe. Like for me to access the document, I'll need to switch my tabs and get it to you. But I'll make sure we'll share that out, and it's absolutely available publicly, so we get it out. I saw Ganesh asking a question as well. You've mentioned that no IT resources to do orchestrator monitor, but need to create VM on serverless machines. We need resources for that, right? So when we said we don't need IT resources, what we meant was there isn't a dependency on setting up a machine, having an MSI downloaded, installed, adding any machine keys, and getting up your machine ready. As you saw, the demos we gave for setting up the virtual machine, ACR VM, and ACR serverless, all you do is set it up all from our automation cloud, and we don't really need any IT resources there. I don't fully gather where you're coming from in terms of need of IT resources for serverless machines. Why don't you unmute and
I think it is true. I don't think you need IT resources for serverless machines, right? Because they're always configured and deconfigured in real time. But for VM machines, it is true that if you want to configure the VM machine in a particular way on Windows Server, you have the option to do that. I don't think we showed that in Vita, but you can actually go in, you can add software to that machine and do other things. You may choose to have IT resources do that for sure. But having said that, out of the box, as it were, out of the cloud, when you configure a VM machine, it automatically gets a machine that's fully configured and the robot is added. So you don't actually need to you don't need to do any of that work to get it up and running in its basic form.
Yeah, and to that, because we're here and we have a couple of minutes, yeah, I visited the machine dashboard page, and as you see, we've enabled remote desktop access to our machine, which is also running. All you do is click on the information icon, if you will, and you get the access IP of your current VM, but the public IP address, which you can copy here, is the address that you'll need to remote desktop into the machine. So you can use this address, copy paste in your sysad, and you can actually access the virtual machine through this IP address. And then go ahead and make the customizations on top of it.
And actually, could you just show that drop-down menu on the right, Anvita, just to be super clear? For security reasons, you can disable the ability to do that unless you're actually using it from within Orchestrator. So that's how you take that. That's why we say that you can replace just about any unattended robot with an Automation Cloud VM robot, because you can actually configure those very specifically with the software and anything else that you need, and they're persistent, obviously. Great. Well, I won't bore you with another closing. Thank you very much for joining, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.